Today we're going over the Dust Storm Mercs Banner in Fire Emblem Heroes. I feel like I'm being targeted here because this is the third seasonal banner in a month with Sacred Stone's characters. This year's Desert Banner will be inspired by Magvel's Jehanna region. Representing the area will be Tethys and Marisa. Marisa is being teamed up with Professor Byleth for a harmonic pair. Joining the festivities is Malice and Path of Radiance Ike. Desert themed and wielding a lance, seems like someone's been rubbing off on Mr. Mercenary. We'll go over everyone's stats and skills, plus discuss some general playstyle and build ideas. The 4-star focus unit is Tethys. You can get her at 4 and 5-star rarity for this banner. Jehanna Tethys isn't getting the Tana treatment, but like Tana, there are some very promising developments for future 4-star focus seasonals. For this ult, Tethys is a Flying Dagger Dancer, interesting class type. For stats, she has 37 HP, 31 attack, 47 speed, 21 defense, and 42 res. Tethys is retaining her speed and res focus, and she has a res super boon this time. She does not have great base attack, nor good physical bulk, still going to want to protect the Dancer. For ult skills, Tethys has Dance and Guidance 3. Like Tana, Tethys will have a tier 4 skill. This one is a bit more niche, but Firestorm Dance 3 is a fun Dancer B skill. It gives Conto 1 to the Dancer, and their ally will get plus 6 attack and speed with Desperation. Ironically, Tethys doesn't really need Firestorm Dance to buff attack and speed thanks to her Jehanna Dagger Plus. I'm not sure this is another sign of things looking up for the 4-star focus units, but this inheritable weapon is fairly stacked in my opinion. Usually I would expect half of the effects on it to be fine for inheritable. Seems like the devs kind of want to close the gap between regular inheritables, arcanes, and then unique weapons. Now, Jehanna Dagger Plus is a 12 might weapon. At start of either phase, if unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, grant plus 6 attack and speed, dodge, and the debuff neutralization status to the user and those allies for 1 turn. This weapon has a plus 7 phantom speed effect. If within 3 spaces of an ally, the user will get plus 5 to all stats, 7 flat damage reduction for first attacks with an S, and finally the next counterattack after getting hit will deal true damage equal to the total damage reduced from any source. Individually, you could say Jehanna Dagger has 7 effects, with 3 of these being team buffs. My Tamari Dagger Tethys might need to borrow from her new ult because this is a fairly solid buffing inheritable. Dodge 40% DR is great, and Phantom Speed will help Tethys proc the effect herself. I would also like to highlight that Dodge does work on AoE specials. Now, debuff neutralization is always good. You also can't go wrong with plus 6 attack and speed, although it does seem like an odd choice with Firestorm Dance also on this unit. While team buffing effects are nice, dodge plus flat damage reduction with the reflected damage and powered counters is very cool. You can even use this with Miracle, and we just got Emblem Lin, who can enable some incredibly cheesy stuff with this combo. Unfortunately, besides the Miracle and reflected damage funny tactic, Tethys most likely won't be doing much damage. 31 base attack is not great. At best, she can take out other super low defense units. If you want to try for combat, you could run the remote spread to stack percent DR to go with Jehanna Dagger. Tethys could run the Flared Strike combo for non-direct damage, and there's Pulse Smog to help avoid special counters. You could hook her up with one of the Arcane Daggers, but Jehanna Dagger is an excellent support option, plus Tethys can use the percent DR and flat DR to help survive if needed. Firestorm Dance's buffs are kind of redundant, but the Desperation effect is good for aggressive dance tactics. Tethys can get Conto 1 to move afterwards. With Guidance, she can help shuffle allies around, and Tethys can use Fire Formation to hop over them too. As usual, you can upgrade to the tier 4 Guidance or Soaring Echo. Air Orders 4 is interesting too, but its attack and speed buffs will overlap with Jehanna Dagger. For other supported skills, Tethys can use Disarm Trap, any of the tier 4 versions. For other flyer skills, Rain, Hold, and Crux can help debuffs if you position well. Speaking of which, with her still somewhat higher res stat, you could go full flat res stacking for Ploys, Sabotage, or Discord. If you want debuffs in the middle of the phase, tier 4 cantrips can offer Sabotage. When it comes to more unique playstyles, Tethys can run Lookout Force. Expensive, but with Conto 2 with Distant Swap, you can give a Dagger Dancer an extra action of sorts. Combine that with Soaring Echo for just a whole load of movement options. Another pairing is with Wings of Mercy. You could also do Mercy Wing Echo with Pass to avoid Warp Bubble. This combo would be best on a flyer who can move on top of most terrain types. Overall, Jehanna Tethys won't be replacing most of the 5-star limited dancers, but she gets flyer mobility and a very solid buffing weapon. Lots of possible options, and daggers have some fun things like Lookout Force or just Disarm Trap for the raids. Our next ult is for Malice, who will be our Swordmaster for the banner. For stats, Malice has 41 HP, 44 attack, 48 speed, 35 defense, and 31 res. She has a speed super boon with fairly common Swordmaster type stats, slightly more balanced defensive spread. For old skills, Malice brings along Gust, maybe not the best in a desert, but very solid speed-based damage option with unperishable % damage reduction. Malice's other skill is attacking speed prime 4. If you can get 3 statuses, prime can give plus 9 stats. If you can get a 4th status, then physical damage units get distant or close counter. Now Malice's Swirling Scimitar shares the same buffing effects as the Jehanna Dagger. Attack, speed, dodge, deep neutralization for the team, and Malice gets a plus 7 phantom speed effect. This weapon has Slaying, and if within 3 spaces of an ally, Malice gets plus 10 to all stats. If you give her 1 Dragon Flower, she gets plus 14 stats, so be sure to pay up. In addition, Malice gets minus 2 cooldown before the enemy's first attack. She gets flat damage reduction equal to 25% speed for the first attacks with an S. Like Jehanna Dagger, Malice gets the reflected damage counterattacks. Last, she can heal 7 HP after combat. Essentially, this is a 5-star version of the Jehanna Dagger, similar effects but with higher flat DR due to speed scaling, and Malice gets Slaying with Lagu's Friend style, minus 2 instant cooldown. She will charge Gust before getting hit, thus triggering its 40% DR effect. Stack that with 40% dodge and the flat DR, then Malice's counterattack is empowered. She heals a little after combat, and if you give 1 Dragon Flower, Malice gets an easy plus 14 to all stats. All in all, not a bad weapon, and Malice can buff up your team just like Tethys. For her new inheritable B skill, Malice brings attack and speed Spiked Wall. This is a tier 4 bulwark side grade, so you can get melee and ranged enemy obstruction. Inflict minus 4 attack and speed in combat, deal true damage equal to 15% speed, reduce damage from foes' first attacks by 7, and the user gets no guard. The general gist is that Spiked Wall is a more offensive bulwark skill. Instead of more damage reduction and healing, you get flat DR paired with true damage and no guard. Not exactly a direct upgrade, just different. It would be a direct upgrade if you don't want to use regular % DR though. For her general playstyle, Malice is a swordmaster who basically can use Gust plus Lagu's Friend. She gets the instant cooldown via her weapon, but she has no DR piercing. In exchange, Malice isn't hindered by the using regular % DR effects, such as from the dot status. If she fully activates it, which is easier with Phantom Speed, Malice gets 2 40% DR effects, and then flat DR equal to 25% speed with an extra 7 flat DR via Spiked Wall. After all of this, Malice will empower her counterattack with the damage she reduced, and she gets true damage via Spiked Wall as well. She may have Prime 4, but she only has 2 statuses for herself. To be honest, you can swap this out for something like Distant Bonus Doubler. If you want to keep Prime 4, Malice seems primed to run Infantry No Follow 4. This will give her the No Follow Up and Warp status to get Prime's Distant Counter. No Follow Up is also great with Swirling Scimitar's attack speed and dodge status. Malice wants No Follow Up herself as a faster unit, plus her damage reduction perks all only work for 1 hit. For other skills, you can stack healing with Finish 4. Godlike Reflexes can replace Gust if you really want a defensive special instead. Since Malice neutralizes D-Boost, you can add Endless Tempest to neutralize the foe's field boost. You can also run Excel if you want some initiation power. If you go for a bonus doubler route, the Infamous Oath 4 or Pledge can give full buffing. If you want to replace Spiked Wall, Malice can run Tempo 4 or Echo and gain 50% DR piercing. For full DR piercing, there is Special Spiral, which could be fun for later fights. However, Malice could also use Lagu's Friend. The extra minus 2 instant cooldown may seem redundant, and the skill is not going to work with Gust. However, with Slaying plus minus 2 cooldown via Swirling Scimitar and then minus 2 cooldown via Lagu's Friend, that means Malice can self-charge Miracle. She heals after combat to reactivate Miracle. Malice then has the reflected damage counterattack. You see where this is going? If you don't have brave hits or you can't outspeed for a double, Malice could chain Miracle over and over, and if you hit her really hard, she returns the damage right back at full power. Lagu's Friend also makes this a full DR piercing counterattack. If you have Dual Allure through Divinely Inspiring, you can give a similar cooldown effect, but you're not going to get DR piercing. All in all, Jehanna Malice is a neat swordmaster who actually has supportive capabilities. Specific combative effects like the instant cooldown and reflected damage counters can make her a fun little surprise. Her base kit is definitely not set in stone, so there's room to experiment. Also, be sure to pay up that 1 Dragon Flower for the extra stats. As a highlight of the banner, Jehanna Ike seems to have taken some inspirations from his emblem counterpart. He even is a lance infantry with a desert theme, just like Tamara. For stats, Ike has 41 HP, 47 attack, 47 speed, 36 defense, and 28 res. He has a speed super boon, and like Malice, fairly typical high attack and speed melee infantry stats. Ike's only old skill is Distant Bonus Doubler, arguably the best distant counter skill for most units at this moment if you can keep field buffs on your team. Now, Ike's Swirling Lance has buffing capabilities like our first 2 units, but Ike's got different effects. At start of either phase, if near an ally, Ike gives plus 6 speed and defense, a new status that increases the speed roll for enemy follow-ups by 10, and then he gets no panic to himself and those allies. Ike has Sling. If within 3 spaces of an ally, he gets bonus stats equal to 5 plus the number of allies within 3 spaces times 3. You get 3 allies in range for a max plus 14 stats. In addition, Ike gets 20% speed as true damage and flat damage reduction. He will then get 50% DR piercing for all attacks. Swirling Lance is fairly straightforward. Speed scaling true damage and flat DR, lots of stats, partial DR piercing, and good old slang. You then have Field Boss with no panic to keep distant bonus doubler active. Last, Ike brings a new status. Like Wyvern Rift or Diamond's weapons, Ike makes it tougher for the foe to double his team. Enemies will need 15 or more speed to double. Now, it's not as Emblem Alt's Great Aether, but Jehanna Ike still gets another juiced up, unique 4 cooldown Aether of his own. Aether's Path has a new damage effect, boosts damage by 75% of the greater of foe's speed or defense, and Ike heals 50% of his max HP. As if this wasn't already a huge upgrade from the regular Aether skill, Ike gets no guard. He counters the anti-healing of deep wounds by 50%, and he has no C disrupt once again. Last, Ike has similar unpierceable percent damage reduction to his Emblem counterpart. For all hits, Ike gets 50% DR equal to 50, minus his current special cooldown value times 10. His max cooldown is 3, so at worst this is 20%, and it goes up to 50% as his special cooldown count is lower. However, if Aether's Path has triggered already in combat, this value will always be 50% damage reduction. First off, damage-wise, this is almost the Black Knight's Black Luna. Technically, it's the same as lethality. Against low defense foes, though, I can instead use their speed against them. 75% scaling is nuts. On top of this, Ike now heals half his HP, no matter what. If the foe has Fatal Smoke, he heals 25% HP at worst. Now with no C disrupt, you have to fight Ike. For this ult, Ike's no longer letting enemies use all their attacks at once. He's gonna hit back when possible. Jehanna Ike may not have the innate bulk of his Emblem form, but he still has unpredictable percent DR that works on all hits. He also is not going to be a free double anymore. You do need to be careful. For Ike's first new inheritable, he brings Legu's Loyalty. Before you get worried, I'm not sure this is an outright upgrade for most units. This Legu's Friend offshoot has the same requirements as above. You need to use a 3 cooldown or higher offensive special, or you can use any cooldown defensive special. If you meet that requirement, you cut your own unit's regular percent DR effects in half. This is a downside. Now, like its friendlier version, you will get flat damage reduction equal to 20% speed rather than defense or res. You then get the -2 instant cooldown before the foe attacks. The major difference with Legu's Loyalty is that it has no DR piercing specials. Instead, for the enemy phase only, you decrease the speed roll for doubling by 10, and you get 7 true damage. Legu's Loyalty is a speed-focused version of Legu's Friend, however the lack of DR piercing kinda feels like a turnoff. First off, it's easier to double enemies, but you still need to bring no follow-up or you can get stopped. Doubling slower foes was not an issue beforehand, so this effect adds nothing in those matchups. Now, the true damage also only is a set +7 rather than scaling off speed. To make matters worse, the easier follow-ups and true damage are enemy phase only. In the context of this Ike, I see Legu's Loyalty being fine. Fast units have to face 50% DR via Aether's Path and then 40% speed as flat DR. He has partial DR piercing on both hits himself. Besides the speed scaling flat DR and speed deals, I'm not sure what to think of this new Legu's Friend side grade for now. Personally, I think if you can get DR piercing elsewhere, it's a good option, but certain units and builds may want to stick with regular Legu's Friend 4. Ike's second inheritable passive is Times Pulse Edge. This is Times Pulse 4 with the extra effect of gaining bonus attack and speed in combat equal to the unit's max special cooldown value +2. For Ike, he has a 3 cooldown special. He will get +5 attack and speed in battle. Besides that, this is just Times Pulse 4 in every other aspect, not really adding anything new in terms of effects. This is simply a replace Times Pulse 4 if you want more stats to keep up with the power creep type skill. If you were only using a 1 cooldown special, is 3 attack and speed really worth the extra fodder. Now, for Jehanna Ike, he plays like any other Legu's Friend unit. With Times Pulse and Legu's Loyalty, Ike will pre-charge Aether's Path, thus giving 50% damage reduction. With his weapon and Loyalty, he gets 40% speed as flat DR. Ike gets 50% DR piercing, and his Aether hits real hard against high speed or defense foes. Ike can then heal 50% max HP. He has distant counter plus no disrupt like his Emblem form. It is worth noting that unlike Emblem Ike, this one is probably going to double you. He gets a speed advantage and is tougher to double. Thanks to no guard, if you scout Aether's Path, Ike recharges it on his first hit. If he doubles, he's still going to proc this hard hitting special. You would need to bring multiple levels of scout to stop this. Now you can also bring a follow-up denial, but like with any fast unit, I'm going to suggest having no follow-up in some form. Generally, Ike's base kit is excellent. Sure, you could run Lagu's friend for full DR piercing specials, but that one's up to you. If you want to have some fun, let's talk about running Ike with Emblem Marth. Double Slaying means 2 cooldown Aether's Path. Throw Lagu's loyalty out, kinda like how the devs treat Ranulf, and maybe run Momentum instead. You could also use Endless Tempest or keep Time's Pulse. Either way, Ike can now initiate with Aether's Path immediately, and he'll get the 50% damage reduction for all hits after. If you can get Breath type cooldown from maybe Flash Sparrow or Pledge, Ike could then recharge Aether's Path when hit back. If he follows up, you get a second proc. No real need to do this, of course, but with Emblem Rings and Ike's speed, you can go for a more initiation playstyle this time. We've had to deal with Lagu's friend units for the past year. This is just something to change things up. The last unit for today is Harmonic Marisa and female Byleth. Untalkative Mercs joined forces in the desert. This Marisa ult will be an Axe Cavalier with 45 HP, 45 attack, 48 speed, 20 defense and 23 resistance. Very offensive stat spread with a somewhat highish base HP. Now Marisa has super boons for attack, speed, and res. She's going to use any extra attack very well. For ult skills, Marisa has Moonbow, attack and speed excel for flat DR, and then oddspeed wave 4 to buff allies and get no follow-up. Marisa's Laconic Axe is a 16-minute weapon that grants +4 to all stats in combat for allies within 3 rows or 3 columns. Additionally, for a target ally in the same range, if Savior was not triggered, Marisa can give that ally dual phase brave attacks. If that ally is in range while Marisa is fighting, she also gets brave attacks herself. Now, for the activation condition, the target ally will be Marisa's support partner. Don't tell Byleth. Now, if her support is not on the team, Marisa will instead use the highest HP ally on your team. For other combative effects, Marisa has Slang and Kanto 2. If she's initiating or there's an ally within 3 rows or 3 columns, Marisa gets bonus stats equal to 5 plus the number of allies in that range. If there are 3 allies, she gets +14 to all stats. Marisa will get true damage equal to 20% speed. She gets flat DR equal to the same amount, but only for first attacks with an S. Marisa then has no guard, and we heal 7 HP after combat. Unlike her banner mates, Marisa is going for an in-combat buff for +4 stats and brave attacks. Marisa can buff her support partner or the highest HP ally from across the map. Very cute detail that Marisa's targeting a high HP ally. It's not like Garrick has some high HP related skills or anything. This is a pretty fun weapon. Giving brave hits to a miracle unit like Attuned to Brigid and then having her fire away with Emblem Lyn is an incredibly strong tactic. If you don't have a dual strike or triangle attack support, perhaps consider getting this Marisa just for this ability. Something those statuses can't do is provide brave hits on enemy phase. Marisa can, which opens up a whole new load of tactics. I would really not underestimate this unit. For their Harmonic skill, Marisa gets +1 movement, she then gets Resonance Blades, and the not slowed by terrain status to herself and allies from Sacred Stones and 3 houses. This skill can be recharged every 3rd turn. Pretty simple effect. For a turn, Marisa becomes a 4-move cav that can cross trenches. She can then help her team bypass any terrain they're slowed by. Good for an aggressive assault or maybe just to get into position early. Since this skill recharges, Marisa could surprise some enemies if they're not careful of her range. For her one new inheritable B skill, Marisa has Assault Force. This skill is for Sword, Lance, and Axe Cavaliers, and Flyers. If unit initiates or is within 2 spaces of an ally, inflict -4 speed and defense, neutralize all stat debuffs, deal true damage equal to 20% of the greater of unit's speed or defense. Last, you get 50% DR piercing for all hits. Assault Force is a tier 4 upgrade of Flow Force 3. It's lost enough follow-up portion, but it's now mixed phase, and it gives full debuff neutralization coverage. Melee Cavaliers finally also get a DR piercing passive. If you don't want to run no quarter, now you got another option. As the name implies, this is a fairly offensive skill. Besides debuff neutralization, it's full on damage perks. You can use it on high speed or defense units. For a Great Knight like Duso, this is a decent damage option, but again, at the cost of extra defensive power from something like Reopening. You also need to be near an ally during the enemy phase. Do note, with the full debuff neutralization effect, you don't need to run Clash 4, you may as well run Excel skills instead. Harmonic Marisa and Byleth are a fairly simple brave attacking Axe Cavalier. Marisa needs to be within 3 rows or 3 columns of her support partner or the highest HP ally on your team to get the brave hits. With Assault Force, Marisa has 50% DR piercing, and she gets 40% speed as true damage per hit. She has Sling and no guard to proc Moonbow on her second hit. If you want to upgrade to Luna or no quarter, you're going to need Heavy Blade or outside cooldown help. Defensively, Marisa has 2 flat DR sources. It's good, but she won't be the sturdiest unit. If the enemy survives her assault, there's a good chance she has a special ready as well. You could run Pavis for 50% damage reduction. Marisa could charge it with her 2 brave hits, although the intention is definitely to run Marisa with one of the dodge-giving supports from this banner. Now another option is Flowguard 4 for access to Scowl. If you want safety through more offense, Desperation is an option for instant quad attacking. Will be stopped by Hardy Berry though. Now Marisa's other skills are fine to keep. Excel is the best option unless you want to run Flared Flame Tiles, or maybe you want more damage via Slice with Sparrow. For C skills, Oddsby Wave gives no follow-up to quad. You could run Fatal Smoke or Insight for more stats. For attuned skills, cows are really lagging behind. Unironically, Deathblow Echo would be fine for a brave attacker. Marisa could have fun with Distant Counter, but again, she's not the sturdiest unit without percent DR. For the most part, Marisa's just a solid brave attacking unit, and her only condition is fairly easy to play around. You may need to be careful on the big diagonal maps though. What makes this Marisa stand out though is that brave attack in combat buff. It can be stopped by feud, but Marisa's brave hits work on enemy phase. Dual Strike and Triangle Attack don't do that, so Marisa could have a very strong defensive or offensive niche. You can't run this with Savior, but you could pair Marisa with Brave Bernie's Vantage or perhaps a Nelsie Disrupt infantry unit. You're gonna need to be on the lookout if you see this Marisa and Byleth hanging out. That'll be it for this Jehanna banner. Our accompanying Tempestron's unit is Saber. He's bringing along a fun lance and a certain inheritable B skill we haven't gotten on free-to-play units before. He's probably not going to match up to the new Ike, but Saber's doing Lance Infantry's proud as a free reward unit. Good luck on your summons, and we'll talk about Saber more in just a bit. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.